Islam don't.
Islam is a principle. Islam is a comprehensive system. Islam is a law. Muslims, say la ilaha illallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're now watching Islam Dunk TV, and we're here with none other than Abu Shahada. Assalamu alaikum, brother Abu Shahada.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So I understand that you're involved working with the Muslim youth. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Inshallah ta'ala, we try our best, ya ikhwan, to service the Muslim youth and dealing with the problems that happen in North America, trying to maintain some semblance of Islam in the real world. So unfortunately, this issue is now coming to light where we have imams that are now starting to get the training to help out the situation, but we're light years behind the situation.
Now, is the situation with Muslim youth, in the West, meaning particularly meaning, Canada, U.S., Europe, and that sort of a thing, is it a different situation for the youth here than it is for the youth in Muslim countries?
Well, I can't say that I've seen all the Muslim countries, but from what I did see while I was in Egypt, I see that it's actually worse in some areas. I spent some time in Egypt, and unfortunately some of the Muslim kids over there, they're actually more American or more Canadian than the people that are born and raised in Canada and America. And we're finding that whatever is being promoted in the societies here, they actually want to engage themselves in it and be a part of that more than their own beautiful Islamic culture that has been brought down to them from their ancestors for thousands of years. So it's become a big problem.
Now we're seeing a lot of Muslim youth in our communities, who aren't practicing Islam, who aren't getting involved with the Deen and doing seeking knowledge and that sort of a thing. Why is that? And then at the same token, we see some people starting to practice again. What is it that is drawing people back into Islam again, and what's pulling people out of it?
Well, as you know, that the greatest the greatest blessing that anybody could have is to be a Muslim. And ikhwan, really, when we look at it, Allah Ta'ala, He said in the Quran, Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana li hadha wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. Truly, all the praise and all the glorification is due to Allah who guided us to this. Truly, if we weren't guided, or if truly Allah didn't guide us to this, we would not be from amongst the guided. So you see that Allah Ta'ala, He is calling people back. And this is another ayah in the Quran where Allah Ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ma yartada minkum an dinihi fasawfa ya'ti Allahi biqawmin yuhibbuhu wa yuhibbunahu. Allah Ta'ala said, O you who believe, do not turn your back away from the religion of Allah, or Allah, He will replace you with people who He loves and who love Him. So if the people have some sincerity in their heart, which is a very hard thing to master these days, is sincerity, Allah, He will push and make Islam in the hearts of the people become beautiful. But when people don't have the sincerity, and they're not sincere for Allah, you find the people running away from Islam. And that's why we see born Muslims who at one time memorized the Quran, who speak the Arabic language, and who lived in the blessed lands of Mecca and Mukarramah, are going this way, and the guy who was the drug dealer, or he was the evil fornicator, or the pimp, or any of those other things who was in the worst of lifestyles, you see that one day Allah puts some light in his heart, and then you see them passing each other by, going different directions. And Allah, He knows the best.
Now, in your line of work, working with the Muslim youth, what kind of programs are you implementing that that are activating the hearts of the Muslims?
Well, we started years ago. My actual first training started in the jail, working with some of the brothers in the jail. And after we were able to do that, we started taking some of the programs from the jail into the high schools, working with the youth, dealing with social empowerment, dealing with religious empowerment, dealing with other things like that, talking about spiritual consciousness. And from there, those same kids, we stay with them for a period of years until they reach the universities. Then they would ask us, brother, come to the university and give a khutbah, give a lecture. So we went from the colleges, the universities, and now we finally reached the masjids. But unfortunately, many of the adults, they're from the warped old ages. They're dinosaurs. They think that the formula for back in their country will be the right formula for these days and these times. And as you know, Ya Ikhwan, we are dealing with the hip-hop YouTube generation. So within seconds, when you're dealing with the youth, you have to be able to catch their attention or else they'll just phase out. So this has become a problem now where we are trying our best, and we have some brothers that we know that are trying to work with the youth. But we need everybody else to get on the same team. It's like the running back who is a superstar. If his blockers don't block for him and open up certain holes, he's not going to be able to get down the field and score the touchdown. So Islam is a team game. It's not the Abu Shahada show or the Islam Dunk show. It's the Islam working together, the Muslims. As Allah said in the Quran, "Ta'awanu al-birr wa taqwa wa la ta'awanu al-ithm wal 'udwan." Cooperate together on piety and righteousness, but don't come together on sin and transgression. So unfortunately, when you see the people cooperating in the proper way and doing the proper thing with righteousness, everything will be facilitated easy by the pleasure of Allah. When the Muslims bring the sin and transgression, you'll find that we're not going to be successful. Allah Ta'ala.
Now, you mentioned that you've done some work in the prisons before. Was the situation like, because we hear stories about in prisons, people reading the Quran. You know, some people said that they read the Quran like 6 times when they were in prison, 10 times when they were in prison. And, you know, I guess they'd be in a situation where they're in solitude sometimes, and they would just be reading through that. The majority of the Muslims that exist in prisons or that have come from prisons, are most of them, have they reverted to Islam, or are there?
Well, what we find in the early 90s, we'd find that most of the people who were looking into Islam or practicing Islam were actual new reverts who accepted Islam and started practicing Islam, because when you're in the jail, you can't move around, so you have to seclude yourself by reading knowledge. So those that were thirsty for knowledge, they would go and read these books, and they would learn about Islam, and they would become Muslims. But unfortunately, it is sad to say, ya ikhwan, ya akhawat, that now we're finding the born Muslims are running to the jails like it's the newest hotel on the block, because they want to be thugs, they want to be criminals, they want to be prostitutes, they want to be pimps, they want to be gangbangers. So we're finding that the jails are now becoming full. And the largest percentage in Toronto right now for the youth are the Muslims.
Now, why is that? Why are they leaving a system of life that is better than the one that they're leaving it for?
Well, I would like to blame it on the media. And alhamdulillah, we have the halal media here, but the haram media, we're finding that the youth want to be like 50 Cent, and they want to be like Gangstar, and they want to be like Little Wizzy, and everything they see on TV, oh, kill, rob, steal, sell drugs. You'll get the beautiful hottie with the green eyes and the nice long hair and all the other bells and whistles. So to do that, I got to rob, steal, kill, rob, cheat, do whatever I can to come up. Because they look at it, and they look at the reality. If they go to school, they have to work hard. If they go on the street, they might be able to make $1,000 in a day, whereas that if they work at McDonald's and they go to school, it might take them a long time. So they're looking for the instant gratification. And we find in the past, the Muslims were happy with delayed gratification because we were people of patience and piety. Now we want things in a heartbeat.
It seems like we've almost forgotten where our sustenance actually comes from. You know, that we forget that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is giving us our jobs, that is giving us our money, that is giving us our food, and then we see what's going on in the media, these self-made millionaires, these these guys putting out rap albums and running in mansions and that sort of a thing, and we want what they have, and you know, we might not even know they could have serious issues behind the scenes, but all we see is this, you know, beautiful silver shining lifestyle. So that's something. And then, you know, out of your work in the prisons, out of your work with the youth, you know, what success stories have you seen in the past couple of years?
Well, we find, brothers, that many people, alhamdulillah, who have accepted Islam in the jail, they have turned their life around, and they're trying hard to maintain their Islam. But when they come out of the jail institution and they come into the general population of the Muslims, we're finding that many of the Muslims don't embrace them as their brothers because they're not from the same ethnicity background as them. or they're not from the same upper echelon of educated people in the status. So they're shunned or they're looked down upon. And it is a sad thing in these days and times for a beautiful religion such as Islam, that when someone embraces the deen, that people look at them and they try to see, are they worthy of my brotherhood? I can say, Akhi, that over the years we've seen some good brothers come out, and mashallah, they'll give their shirt off their back for Islam and the Muslims. They'll take the bullets for Islam and the Muslims. They'll take whatever criticism for Islam and the Muslims because they're dedicated. These days, we don't see too many Muslims that are here in North America. The reality is they did not come here for Islam and the spread of doubt. They came here for the almighty dollar. And they came here for success and so-called milk and honey. But we find that many people, they're chasing that, but they forget the akhirah. There's nothing wrong with getting a secular degree or a higher education, but at the same time, we're supposed to be a nation that's balanced. So we find from that if the Muslims are balanced, they take the best from this life and the best from the next life, inshallah ta'ala.
Excellent. So, it's a situation where, where like people are kind of losing track. And another question I wanted to ask you, have you ever had any, when I was asking you, about success stories and that sort of thing, I've also heard, we've heard stories from, Napoleon from the Outlaws. You may have heard his story, coming to Islam. And he, in his talks, he's talked about people who have been the roughest gangsters, killers, drug dealers, murderers, and had no problem, didn't blink an eye when it came down to taking someone's life, becoming soft people. Have you noticed anything like that before?
Yeah, we see people that are sincere. I know some brothers personally who are huge, 6'4", 290 pounds. They're gangbangers. They're the top shatters. They're real rude boys. They're serious Jamaican brothers. Become some of the most humble people in the community with good manners, good behavior. Like we said before, they'll give you their car. They'll give you many good things. But also, we have also seen that Muslims who are from religious families, who've memorized the Quran, who know the Arabic language, who had a good Islamic tarbiyah, a good raising in Islam, we see them, and we've seen them, leave all of that for this other alternative lifestyle. And they don't have too much knowledge. They think that they're gangsters, and they think that they're bad boys, and they try to go out there and emulate this stuff. But when they get out there, maybe they punk you off for today and punk him off, but then when they run up against the real gangsters, they get beat down real bad. And unfortunately, some real bad activity has happened in jail that even some of their manhood has been challenged, if you know what I mean.
I see that. Now, you mentioned that there are different issues in the Muslim community amongst people who who've been brought up in Muslim families, people whose parents come from overseas, like the Muslim community of born Muslims, as opposed to people who have embraced Islam just recently. What kind of issues are there out there that we need to identify to move forward?
Well, we have a city just outside of Toronto. There's two actually. One is called Mississauga and the other one is called Oakville. These are very lavish communities with the hierarchy of the rich people there. And we have some Muslims that are good practicing Muslims. They live in these areas, driving Mercedes, driving Lexuses, driving all the fancy cars. But we're finding that even though their parents give the keys of the car to the Lexus to their son or their daughter, we're finding that their daughters and sons are so bored of being rich and having everything for them that they actually want to go out there, break into somebody else's car, steal their radio just for the fun of it. And they've got caught and they end up in jail. And unfortunately, if you're a Muslim sister, if you get caught and you go to jail, you're not allowed to wear your hijab in the jail. You're not allowed to wear jilbab in the jail. There are certain things that you're restricted. And as we know that, in Islam, we have to stay strong and firm and not get caught up in all these things. And the believer is the one who he realizes that he's only in a temporary place. The Prophet said, "Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib or abr as-sabil." He said, stay in this life like a wayfarer or a traveler by. Why? Because we know that we're supposed to take what we can from this life to worship Allah, but this is not the real place for the Muslim. There's another place that's called the Akhirah. So many of us have lost that, chasing after hayat dunya, that we have lost focus, that really the reality is we have to return to Allah, and that's where the real life is. So a Muslim is one who is balanced. He takes from the good so he can get benefit. He stays away from the bad so it doesn't harm him. We need Muslims these days that understand the best of both worlds. We need balanced Muslims. And if we have that situation, we'll lead the world again like we did with the Muslims in Andalusia, Spain, with the Muslims in Timbuktu, with the Muslims in all of the areas where the Muslims in Islam was very powerful. And when we read about these things and we look and we read the books about the fruits of the Muslims in the past, it astonishes me to see what we had or what we read about, and now that the Muslim, we can't even come to the masjid together and put our foot together and our shoulders together and be happy with one another and be brothers for the sake of Allah. So it shows that we as Muslims need to reflect upon these things, and we hope that the new generation that's coming, that they're going to realize that life is very short, and in terms of that you have a limited opportunity to do a lot of good deeds. So the young youth that's out there, we encourage you to do as much good deeds as you can, because you just never know. You're not guaranteed that you're going to live to your 7 years old. We know a kid that was born in a Muslim family, hafid of the Quran. He tried to become a gangster and he got snuffed out at the age of 19.
SubhanAllah.
And his friends since then, when they seen this, almost all of them, they came back to the repentance of Allah and they tried to change back to that. But we don't need kids to get killed and shot and murdered for drugs and all this stupidness for the rest of the community to click in. Click in and learn. And as they say, the wise man is the one who learns from his mistakes, but the wiser man is the one who learns from the mistakes of others. Allah.
And just one more thing before we close. I see that you're sporting a new clothing line.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the clothing line?
Inshallah ta'ala. Allah has blessed us with strictly Sunnah athletics, strictly Sunnah boys, flowers of the Sunnah, them strictly Sunnah sisters, and strictly Sunnah girls. One of the reasons that we decided to come up with this line, and it's not that, you know, me being a person who grew up in the hip-hop culture, we realized that the kids are into fads and fashions. And they want to emulate and imitate everything that they see on the TV or what is supposedly to be cool and fashionable. Many of the Muslim kids, they spend lots of money on Nike, Fila, Adidas, Converse, all of those things. But recently, strictly Sunnah, we had the great opportunity to make the janazah on Adidas, Fila, Nike, because now we are sporting strictly Sunnah.
MashaAllah.
So the youth, you now have the opportunity. You don't have to buy Nike. You don't have to buy Fila. Because when you buy Fila, Nike, and Adidas, not one penny comes back to Islam, the Muslims, or the masjid. But when you purchase one of the items from strictly Sunnah, inshallah ta'ala, go towards the dawah efforts that we're trying to make, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala.
So we got to support our own community. You know, wear the gear that you know, that supports the Muslims and supports the dawah. MashaAllah, great talking to you today, Abu Shahada. And that's Corey signing up for Islam Dunk. Come check us out, islamdunk.org.